How's it going, everyone? How's it going? This is the Conscious Chicano, and I'm on here for another conscious chat, number 5. The title is Decolonize Chicano Studies. Let me see if I can say hello in my chat room. Hello. Okay. Just trying to get used to all this YouTube stuff. Um, and hello to everyone on my Instagram as well. Um, so I'm on Instagram and YouTube. Uh, Read the details below. If you want to connect with me on Instagram, if you want to send me a message, add me on Instagram. Click on that link below and send me a message. Also, check out my uncensored videos on Rumble, and I have the link below. So go click on that. And also click on my Twitter. Go below. It's the Conscious Chicano right there. So, but definitely welcome to the Conscious Chat number 5. The ideal for me is to have 30 minutes to talk about this topic, and I'll open it up. I'll open up the video, and I'll send my link after I'm finished discussing the topic. And or if you choose not to be on the video, just send me some questions in the chat room, and just chat rules. Read the chat rules below. Just keep it civil, respectful, and stay on topic. Okay. All right. So let's get to the topic. Decolonize Chicano studies. Wow, man. So, yeah, so as you kind of like have this journey, if you go on this journey of decolonizing the mind, raising your consciousness, um, you just start seeing a lot of stuff that's not, truthful, or, stuff that's kind of like half truths mixed with maybe ignorance or even lies. And I actually remembered, like, when I started, you know, digging deeper into my decolonization journey, which was like pretty much in the 90s. And I was involved in a group called the Mexica Movement. And I remember the leader at that time, Olin, um, he would always talk about Chicano studies. And I was like kind of new to this. Like, I always had this native consciousness, but I wasn't like, well aware of, you know, a lot of the Eurocentrism and colonization and the whole systemic thing as well. And I remember he would talk about like Chicano studies and the problems with it, and he would say, "Oh, they teach nothing but mestizo studies, Latino studies, and everything." And I'm like, "Oh wow!" I was just listening. I was like, "Interesting." And as you gain a lot of knowledge of your history, your culture, who you are as a brown person, as an indigenous person, you come to as even it's like you come to realize that institutional knowledge is at times colonizing as well, and this includes even some of your ethnic studies, some of your Chicano studies departments as well. And as I was kind of introduced to a lot of native, history and culture and consciousness, um, you know, I realized, when I took some Chicano studies classes, like I noticed that some of the stuff being taught there, some of the professors were still colonized in their mindsets, and some of these professors would have PhDs, graduate degrees, masters, and may even have came from some Ivy League schools or prestigious schools, but I still saw that they were colonized and they're still ignorant on a lot of subjects and so the way I saw it, it doesn't matter if if you have a PhD or you're a product of the institution. Like a lot of times is becoming conscious is like it's having wisdom, common sense, good critical reasoning skills, and not being confined to the institutions. Because what they teach you in these departments in these institutions, they teach you what they want you to know and learn. So one of my biggest awakenings is reading the book called American Holocaust. And I've taken history classes, I've taken ethnic studies classes, Chicano studies, anthropology, and all that. But when I read that book, American Holocaust, that kind of information, like professors don't even really teach that. And I can imagine like most people coming out of these institutions either have no clue about that history or it's like they're just fed a little bit of it or it's watered down. So that's why I really stress becoming conscious. And being conscious is like you know you you're you do research, right? And you read books on your own. You learn knowledge and wisdom in many different ways. And even as me as I went to the institutions, right? Got my degree in philosophy. What I liked about philosophy, though, even though it's Eurocentric and colonized, um, they also teach you to have critical reasoning skills and to kind of like think for yourself or even question things out there or examine things, whatever comes at you, you really examine it and try to, look at different angles, different, the pros and cons, dig deeper into the issue, right? Um, and that's good. That's good right there. It teaches you to question things, and dig in, dig in for, look, seek the truth, right? Seek the truth and and make sure you're not, deceived by lies or um, you know or even deception, you know. So and the way I am is I deal with a lot of the whole philosophy of the matrix and everything. A lot of this goes back to Rene Descartes. He's a philosopher, and a lot of the matrix philosophy comes from Rene Descartes and the whole thing about illusion. The reality of illusion. Um, he talks about an evil demon. Say possibly there's an evil demon deceiving you, and he just talks about reality, and whether everything is a dream or an illusion, and everything's, but he does conclude that there's some truths that do exist, and you can know them as well. And he kind of concludes to, I think, therefore I am. So whenever you're thinking, you exist, and that's a fact, right? Whether you're dreaming or not, you know that you exist, and that's a truth about reality, right? And so you can't go around in the world thinking everything's an illusion, everything's a lie. So you got to seek the truth, right? Seek the truth, and but at the same time, there's an aspect of reality that is illusionary, that is a lie, that is deceptive. And what I think a lot of times is these institutions out here teach a lot of lies, water down information, and things like that. So, so from my experience of Chicano studies, there was some professors that are teaching good stuff, but I say not enough though. There's a lot of them still teaching that, oh, you're mestizo, that you're Latino, um, you know, there's just teaching a lot of even a lot of their perspectives are along the lines of the fake wokeness and the whole liberal Democrat party agenda. They're manipulated by that kind of thinking, and I'm not even advocating republicanism or conservatism. What I'm saying is that a lot of these Chicanos out here who can't claim they're all about social justice and everything, they're only limited to their conceptions of social justice along the lines of the Democratic Party, and that's part of the problem. And so, and yeah, I can't get into certain topics because the way they are on YouTube and everything. So, um, definitely go on my Instagram, on my Twitter, and all that. I go deeper into stuff and exposing a lot of these fake woke, Chicanos out here, and it's like a lot of this whole new woke era. It's like you know, they went along with the whole liberal Democrat Biden agenda, started pushing all that stuff. And me, I'm old school, so I pushed a lot of the consciousness stuff, back in the day, before wokeness, there was consciousness, right? And when you're a conscious person. It's like, that both liberals and and conservatives or Republicans and Democrats are part of this, the same problem. They're, what's it, that double-headed serpent in some sense. It's like they're both part of the problem. You know, and so we're not, us conscious heads are not manipulated by those politics and by their opinions. So we see through their lies, right? We see through their half truths. So we don't fall for that deception. And so, yeah, definitely, Chicano studies is manipulated, watered down, and I'm not discouraging people from getting a degree in Chicano studies. If you get a Chicano studies degree, by go ahead and do it, but just don't limit yourself to the what they teach you in there. Don't limit yourself. Because they do indoctrinate you in there. You know, and I'm not even seeing like really, um, like they even say that the older Chicano generation was more, a little more hardcore than this new generation has propped up into the Chicano studies. You have this whole Latinx movement and all that. It's all watered down and commercialized, and their only agenda is a non-binary agenda. You know, I'm not going to go into all the details of that because um, YouTube is woke as well. So um, so you guys who are conscious know what I mean. They push this whole non-binary nonsense everywhere, and they confuse, especially a lot of Chicanos and Chicanas, you know, and they're pushing this agenda, you know, and even the whole masculinity stuff, man. Like in Chicano studies, they're not teaching none of that stuff, they're not teaching. They a lot of, from my experience from Chicano studies, even back in the '90s, you know, Mexican manhood was demonized. You know, Chicano manhood was demonized, or even confused with that non-binary nonsense. And so we didn't have any real manhood being taught in Chicano studies, positive manhood. You know, we're just labeled as, oh, you're a machista, and you're an oppressor. Or they teach in Chicano studies, oh, it's the patriarchy, part of the patriarchy, the problem. And what does that mean? You know, it means that they're anti-men, right? And that's part of another problem of Chicano studies out here. I see these Chicanas out here coming on YouTube as well, and all in the Chicano studies, and and they're teaching other women to to hate on brown men. I've seen that, and I've been involved in some of these Chicana groups here and there, and I seen what they teach them, what they tell them. Sometimes they teach the women to undermine brown men. You know how to undermine them and manipulate them, and it's time for brown men to be aware of this. This is what they're teaching in Chicano studies. Like they're teaching like anti-maleness, anti-brown maleness, but the whole thing on you know we got to understand the brown male also. We can't just ignore him and demonize him and label him as a machista, as the patriarchy, right? And because not all of us brown men are oppressors, right? Some of us are oppressed even by brown females who end up having status and position, right? Who give in to white supremacy. Yeah, that happens, right? Nobody talks about that in Chicano studies. Um, so we need to decolonize this Chicano studies out here, because there's a lot of thinking there that's being taught. That's um, nobody's really speaking about certain issues out here. You know, and they're always confined to the Democratic Party, the Liberal Party, right? And they'll support Biden and his warmongering agenda. And where a lot of times I don't see Chicanos out here, speaking out against the military-industrial complex and their warmongering. They go along with the Democratic Party, and they're supporting, you know, the United States in basically trying to. They're supporting the United States in basically conquering Russia, right, man. So that is a lot of a lot of manipulation amongst us brown people out here, and it's just unfortunate that we confine our thinking to the Democratic Party, you know, and this liberal agenda out here. And I'm not pushing no republicanism or conservatism. As you guys know, I'm more of a Chicano anarchist than anything else. So I don't buy into all this liberal and right right wing and left wing politics, Democrats, Republicans, none of that stuff, and even this whole statism stuff, Um, and but you see a lot of these brown folks doing that out here. They're on that agenda. They talk about the white man, but yet they're they're brown nosing him, right? They're still bowing down to him one way or another. So definitely, we have a lot of issues in this whole Chicano studies. They teach mestizo studies, Latino studies. That's also the problem. And we have this whole thing about brown man being oppressors, right? Nobody talks about the brown female being the oppressor as well, you know. And so we got that whole issue too, you know. And then you have this whole non-binary nonsense, you know. A lot of us old school Chicanos don't buy into that stuff, you know. We don't buy into that non-binary garbage, you know, that ideology. That's what it is. And the fact is we have biology out here. You know, you're either male or you're either female, right? And it's very rare that people are hermaphrodite. Oh, okay. Something happened to my camera. Um, hold on. So I'm being unplugged here from my camera. Something's going on with my YouTube. Let's see here. Let's see. Start camera. Okay, we got that back on. So, yeah, so a lot of us Chicano. Oh, here, there it goes. This thing is a little sensitive. Okay, so I'm back. Hopefully, my camera doesn't go off again. Um, yeah, so a lot of us Chicanos who are, you know, spitting truth, dropping knowledge, a lot of times we're banned everywhere. I got banned on TikTok. I got banned on YouTube at times, Facebook, Instagram. And whenever we talk about, you know, real issues, they ban us, you know. And so there's a lot of censorship out here. And it's crazy because most people will listen to social media, but their minds are like listening to watered down information. And so when someone comes out and starts spitting truth, dropping knowledge, um, they censor us, you know. So I'm kind of used to it, and definitely. So yeah, you got this whole thing, you know. Chicano studies very colonizing. They're all, you know, they're pushing a lot of this Democrat liberal agendas all the time, and you know they're you know, and this is all they talk about, you know. They don't talk about issues, you know, a lot of good issues that we need to confront and talk about, you know. So I see, you know, they're just preoccupied with this whole non-binary stuff. If you actually go to Chicano studies and take their classes, it seems like that's the only revolution they want is a non-binary agenda. Oh man, it's just crazy, you know. And all you hear about is, you know, anti-maleness, and all you hear about is this whole, um, this whole non-binary agenda. So um, we don't have no strong males in Chicano studies. We don't have no strong heterosexual positive males dropping knowledge hardly. We do have some of them, and don't get me wrong. There's some you know some down ass Chicanos out there who are professors, but we got too much of this whole non-binary stuff. This whole feminism. Oh, let me get on the feminists right now, man. These Chicana feminists, a lot of them are they're brainwashed by the white feminists, and a lot of times they think, oh no, we oppose white feminism, but they've been brainwashed by the feminists, the white feminists. And welcome to the chat, casual conversation. It's good seeing you. Talking about decolonizing Chicano studies, because that's kind of like the think tank, right, of a lot of brown folks out here. They limit their mindsets to what Chicano studies teaches them, the universities, the institutions, and they don't go beyond, beyond that knowledge, or even look deeper into the knowledge. And so they're still colonized. you know they're pushing a lot of agendas that are even like coming from the Democratic Party. you know I met this old school Chicano professor, told me, man, you know what, I'm gonna be. He told me this. He goes, do you know who hijacked the Chicano movement? And I'm like, oh shoot, who was it? And he told me it was the feminists and the non-binary people. I'm like, oh man, you have a good point there, man. And that's all you hear about in Chicano studies. You know, I don't hear about, okay, let's talk about white supremacy. We do hear some of that. Let's talk about systemic white supremacy. There should be more focus on that. What about brown maleness? Brown positive masculinity, heterosexuality. We don't hear about that stuff. No male empowerment. That's lacking in Chicano studies out here. You know, there's a lot of anti-maleness, right? Oh, it's the patriarchy, the patriarchy. Patriarchies exist throughout the world, throughout civilization. There was a role for men, as protectors, right? Throughout civilizations, we protected the female, right? The families, right? We were defenders, right? We're the ones that protected the tribe, right? We're the ones that there needs to be a respect for the man, the maleness, and a lot of these people get into the whole native decolonization. They forget about the duality there, the harmony there between male and female, you know, and both males were respected for their maleness, and women were respected for their femaleness too. You know, it wasn't none of this non-binary confusion where the woman tries to be the man, right, of the household, or the man becomes a emasculated, submissive person. you know, there's a lot of emasculation of men. That's the agenda. So we won't be a strong nation. For example, where are all the Chicano leaders out here? Some of these so-called leaders out here, I don't see a lot of them. None of them came out and started exposing what happened in the last 2 years. If you guys know what I mean, none of them, hardly. I just saw just a few of them. I'm actually one of them, in my opinion. But there's a couple of them. There's a little group of us that came out and started speaking out what happened in the last 2 years, if you guys know what I mean. But everybody jumped on board, you know. They jumped on board and complied, So, and some of you most educated Chicanos out here with your PhDs and master's degrees and all that, some of you guys just jumped on board, and went along with the agenda, right? And that's why a lot of Chicanos and Chicanas have been misled out here, misled, by the propaganda, because we're not taught to question anything. You're not taught to question the institutions, the media, all that. You're not taught to question so-called authority, right? That's why I like philosophy, because they teach you it's not about status or authority. Truth is truth, and let it stand on its own. You know. So if someone comes out and says, "Oh, I'm the science, right? I'm the science. Don't question me," you know, that's just a bunch of nonsense. Like oh, thank you, casual conversation. Thank you for sharing the video. Um, yeah, people say, oh, you can't question the science, right? But what is science, man? I study the philosophy of science. That part of questioning is part of the scientific method. it's always good to question and question whatever you're trying to look into, right? You know, and that's what it's all about. This is reason, right? This is the methodical doubt that Descartes talked about, the philosopher. You know, he was a mathematician, right? He's you know, but part of the scientific method, is to question, is to dive deep and try to seek, the truth about certain things, and then even that is never absolute. The more information, the digger you deep, the more you dig deep into things, it's like, okay, now you got to change your knowledge about certain things, about reality, right? So it's okay to question the science. And if someone comes out as authoritarian and says, no, 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 you can't question me, I'm the science. No, that's just not true right there. You can question anything. Question your Chicano studies professor. Question certain research. Question data out here. Question what you've been told all your life in some sense. You got to dig into the truth of things. Just don't allow yourself to be indoctrinated, especially these institutions out here, the media, what you hear on the radio. I remember watching a documentary called Manufactured Consent by Noam Chomsky. And even though he flip flopped later on, he went along with the agenda. Now he's questioning the agenda. But, you know, but he had a good documentary. The old Noam Chomsky was pretty good, where he made a documentary called Manufactured Consent. You could still find that somewhere. And it talks about how the media is a bunch of propaganda, right? It's a propaganda for the government. And so a lot of times it's what you're being fed in the media. It's exactly how they want you to think, the government wants you to think. And, as a Chicano anarchist, we know government's corrupt, right? Bunch of corrupt, you know, white supremacists behind the scenes, right? Controlling and dictating things, manipulating things. And they also control the institutions, certain subjects can't be taught in certain departments in the universities. That's why Chicano studies is watered down. You can't come off too hardcore, right? Or else, next thing you know, you don't get tenure, right? We're not going to hire you, right? Chicago's professors, they're always worried about, I better not say certain things, or else they're not going to hire me, right? It's kind of like a secret society, right? It's like, okay, you better not talk about that secret society or we're not going to feed you, right? You're not going to get a job here. We're not going to hire you anywhere, right? That's what happens when you expose the beast, right? You expose the beast, and that's what happens. Um, but I think Chicanos out here, you could still wisen up, become conscious, do some research, study on your own, question things, use your critical reasoning skills, right? Don't let nobody indoctrinate you, and that's where the genius comes about, I remember reading up on Einstein. He said he hated school and he learned more studying on his own. This is where he came up with a lot of his scientific knowledge, right? And I came across some guys, some kids who are like already like 17 or 18, um, they went through homeschooling. And I was just listening, like this guy, he's already like, um, he raised like a programmer, and he took like calculus when he was like and got an A, like I think like in junior high or elementary or something like that, and he's already working on his, like, he's barely like 18 and he's already like He's already actually he was in college like before he was 17. I think even like 16 or 15 or something like that. And and so it just tells you when you're self-taught, that's you can learn a lot more than what these educational institutions teach you. You know, and I know they going through the institution they do brainwash you and indoctrinate you. And Chicano studies is no different. All you hear is non-binary. They put the X to everything. Now they're putting Chicanx and Latin X and all that. And then if you talk about this, they say, "Oh, you're just an old, you know, you're just an old school. It's you older generation. You know, us newer generation are gonna replace you guys. You know, so this is the future, right? The indoctrinated, brainwashed, um, puppets that now call themselves Latinx, right? They're non-binary. They're supposedly the revolutionaries, the so-called hardcore, right? They're gonna lead the movement, right? What a joke, Um, these guys, I don't know. It's just crazy. But and then if you oppose that, they label you as, oh, you're just full of hate, right? You're full of hate or you're a bigot, whatever. No, it's not like you hate anybody and you're not a bigot, right? You just don't agree with that agenda, you know. Respectfully, you respect people, right? Don't matter where they're coming from, whatever. But you don't have to agree with their mindset, their ideas, right? Their beliefs. I'll respect you as a person, but I don't have to agree with your beliefs, right? So yeah, definitely. But yeah, you got this agenda right here in Chicano studies. It's very colonized. They teach you you're Latino, that you're mestizo, that as a brown male, you're part of the patriarchy. You're an oppressor. You're machista, um, or you should identify as something else. You shouldn't identify with yourself, right? I mean, or yourself. They deceive you into believing that you're something else, right? you know, this non-binary stuff is just ridiculous. Like, um, it's like, okay, you want to identify with something one day and then identify with something another day, and it's, come on, man, really? It's just a joke. This whole social construct stuff and everything. Come on, man, learn some biology, right? And this whole they act as though everyone's a hermaphrodite, right? They can go ahead and change their identities because no, it's very rare that someone's an actual hermaphrodite. And when that occurs, it's a few exceptions. And when that occurs, one organ dominates the other, right? And that's why sometimes they have to surgically remove um, a certain body part that doesn't work, right? And then even the biochemistry, you can't ignore that. They try to get you in this hormone injections and all that stuff. The biochemistry, you're gonna have, if you're born a male, you're gonna have a biochemistry of a male, and you're gonna have all these different things that characterizes a male, right, in your body. You can't ignore that. The same with the females. Wow, but they're teaching you in Chicano states, oh, you could be non-binary and you can identify as something else, right? More confusion, right? They're teaching this. This is actually colonization. They teach you to be confused and weak-minded, and this is actually going on along with the colonizer. The colonizer wants you confused and weak-minded so you won't be a threat to him, right? He doesn't mind that there's Chicanos and Chicanas that are all confused about who they are and this and that. They actually want that, you know. So this is part of the problem out here, you know. And this is like the devil. He brings confusion. And the institutions teach that. They teach confusion, weak-mindedness, and that's what that's part of the problem, you know. But yeah, definitely Chicano studies needs to change, man. Needs to change. And if you're a younger generation listening to this video, you spark that change, you know. Um, Definitely teach others, you know. You don't have to be indoctrinated. You don't have to buy into all that, you know, all that stuff they teach you in there. If you get a degree in that Chicano studies, go make a change, you know. Challenge their thought. You know, I remember I was in Chicano studies and I heard a professor saying a lot of nonsense, and yeah, I had to speak up. I was like, oh no, 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 I don't agree with that. And they knew like, oh okay. And then you had these all these weak, you know, vendidos out here trying to defend the professor, and I was like, man, you need to sit down. It was like I would, you know, sometimes I would debate them, and I would say, you know what, man, that's not true, you know. And so that's why you got to have a strong mind, be centered, and don't let nobody manipulate you into being weak-minded, you know. And do some research, study a lot, man. Dig into the truth. And how do you acquire knowledge? There's many ways. There's many acquire knowledge. Some people are anti-book, right? You got some of these decolonizing Chicanos out here. Oh, I can't read a book written by a white man, right? You know, um, so and there might be some justification for that. There's some books are, you know, they do have colonizing information, but there's some certain facts that you can't ignore, right? You just gotta have a mindset. Okay, when I read this book and this information, I have to question things if it's accurate or not. And then the same goes with these brown scholars and native scholars. Sometimes they're spitting colonized knowledge too. So you have to question it too as well. So you just gotta look for the truth. But a good way to, you know, try to seek to raise your consciousness is to get, you know, start buying some dope books that are, you know, really you know, exposing a lot of stuff, you know. And not only that, just even, you know, watch some good documentaries that, you know, um, they talk about different things that just challenging the status quo, the mainstream, right? A lot of us like that underground stuff, you know. So check out some good documentaries. I remember I was involved in some of the Chicano communities out here, and I was trying to I was actually showing some documentaries exposing a lot of stuff, you know. Uh, and this is how you raise the consciousness of the community, you know. Show some good decolonizing documentaries. Share some good resources, books, articles, research, and all that. It's out there. You just got to do it. And even learning from the older generations too, the elders, you know, who actually, you know, actually went through their struggles and paved the way for you as well. And a lot of people, you know, we need to go back and even learn from the elders, the wisdom, right? And not every elder is wise, right? So you got to pick and choose and say, okay, this one is pretty, you know, full of wisdom, right? And because don't get me wrong, there's some fools that grow old, you know, so, and they stay a fool, right? So you got to make sure some of your elders are wise, you know, the ones you talk to, and they don't confuse you or manipulate you too, because some of them are even colonized as well. So just be aware of that. But it's good to learn from good elders and get some wisdom from them. This is how you learn. And also using your common sense, you know, just, you know, making sense, trying to make sense of things, using your common sense, you just your reasoning skills, question things, you know, even your perception. in philosophy we talk about epistemology. How do you acquire knowledge, right? And a lot of times it's through your five senses, and some say even further through your intuition, right? Or some say through God, right? The access you access wisdom there, and so even your experiences, right? Your experiences in life, this is how you gain wisdom too, whether they're good or bad, and even learning from other people's mistakes. Just be a good observer, you know. Sometimes you know people who are kind of like the black sheep, right? And they go out there and make they're all living a chaotic life, right? And you kind of learn off of them. You say, okay, I don't want to be like that, so I'm not going to follow that path and make those decisions, right? So you got to learn off other people's mistakes. Good to be a good observer, and definitely, and just seek wisdom. That's the key, wisdom. And even with your senses, what you see, you perceive, what you hear. Even some say, oh, even your feelings, right? Your heart, right? You got to be careful though. Sometimes the heart deceives, right? But then sometimes you have good gut instincts, so sometimes you got to trust them, right? And this is how this could lead you to making better decisions in life. But knowledge, wisdom, all that stuff, you learn from many sources. It's just not one thing. And also with God, God, a lot of great minds, a lot of scientists or people with wisdom and all that, they say they get thoughts from God. I think it's like a God thought in some sense. Somehow God gives you that wisdom, right? And all wisdom, if you believe in the creator, right? If you believe in God, the source of everything that exists, all wisdom comes from God, you know. And we lack a lot of wisdom in this society, especially in this culture. And sometimes the whole Chicano studies don't even teach you that much good wisdom, you know. But don't get me wrong, there's some good stuff about Chicano studies. There's pros and cons, right? I definitely love reading the history of Chicanos and certain, especially when it comes to the colonization, the oppression, their struggles for autonomy and all that, for freedom. That's some good stuff. But don't let them indoctrinate you with all this stuff. Even in Chicano studies, they teach you to hate Christianity, and they teach you to become an atheist too. You know, Uh, that's even part of the problem too. It's changing though. I know at UCLA, there's new research now embracing, decolonizing Christianity, embracing Christianity as being part of the Chicano movement and facilitating the Chicano movement. A lot of famous brown folks who were involved in the Chicano movement were Christians. Uh, a lot of times we had these decolonial native, because I was part of that. We learn about the colonization and how the Europeans used Christianity to justify themselves and to oppress the indigenous. And, and it's good to know about that. But we can't all label all of Christianity as bad and evil. There's good things about it as well. How it ended slavery. It pushed the liberation theology of the Bible and amongst brown folks and even some Europeans who were Christians. Um, advocated for the freedom of oppressed peoples, whether they were Africans or natives, or people in between, who are, you know, due to the product of the rape of the Europeans, they were oppressed as well too. They didn't have as much social status as the Europeans, so they were oppressed at times as well. So, um, we can't be labeling and demonizing Christianity. And Chicano studies does a lot of that right there. And it even turns you into atheist. And I even say atheism is a colonizing thing. It's a white, it's a European fad and trend, And even amongst natives out here, most of us believed in the creator, right? You know, and and I think it's a white man thing to even think that no creator exists, you know, and so I think even that's colonizing. And even this with this whole communism and Marxism stuff. There's actually a good book. It's edited by Ward Churchill. I think it's called Marxism and Native Americans, and there's even essays in there by different Native scholars, and they basically say that Marxism is another Eurocentric ideology, you know, and it claims it's going to save our people, but it's just like any other colonizing ideology out there. And so it's an interesting book to read and everything. But so yeah, we even have Chicanos out here. I think they're all revolutionary, but they're all promoting their whole communist agenda, statism, and all that stuff. And the way I am is like, you know, Chicano anarchism comes from natives here. There's a book called Indian Givers by Jack Weatherford, who was an anthropologist. He says that natives were anarchists over here, especially when the Europeans were colonizing and trying to set up their statist government over here. They were anarchists, right? And the Europeans even learned from native anarchism, right? And so I embrace anarchism even I even not only pointed towards the European statism, but even the indigenous statism in some sense. Because even amongst the Mexicas, they had a form of elitist structures there too, and they were oppressing certain people as well. That's why you had some of these so-called human sacrifices or offerings, right? They at least had certain status over the people, right? So there was a form of statism there too. It was more like a confederacy ruled by certain classes of families and kind of like councils and everything. But still, I still, am anarchistic towards even some natives structures out here. I'm not saying every form of organization amongst native populations were um, oppressive. Some of them were kind of like uh, more like in terms of consensus, agreements and networking and barter, like trading and all that. So, um, but I will say that when there's government, there's corruption. It don't matter if it's white, black, Asian, brown, native, whatever. Whatever there's government, there is corruption. People get greedy. They want power. They want wealth and all that stuff. So, um, but I just got a little into this whole politics stuff. But a lot of times, Chicano studies is pushing certain politics all the time, especially the democratic politics. So we have to question that and not buy into that stuff. Think for yourself, right? Anyways, I guess if anyone has any questions, I'm sure casual conversation or somebody wants to send a question. Um, but definitely, there's a lot of issues with institutional knowledge, especially coming from Chicano studies. Um, I'm saying is dig deeper. Don't confine your mind to the institutions, and definitely if you happen to be part of those institutions, then make a change there. And it's very hard because you got to answer to the chairs, right? To their gatekeeper committees there, right? They're the ones usually in charge of their departments there. And I actually bumped heads with some of their gatekeepers too, and and that's part of the problem too. And that's what happens. You have a colonial state out here, and even the little freedom that we are allowed to express ourselves, say in Chicano studies, is still watered down, is still controlled, institutionalized. Just think about it. People who are gatekeepers up there, a lot of times they become gatekeepers for a reason, right? They know, okay, you're supposed to, basically bow down to people above you, right? Who are funding you, right? Right. I remember I got kicked out of a cultural center just because I was over there exposing what the Spaniards did in history. And they didn't want me. And this was like I'm not going to say the name, but, this was a Chicano indigenous cultural center that I was involved in from the beginning. And they didn't want me to talk about the Spaniards and what they were doing to the natives and that kind of history. Um, and one of them told me that, hey, we're getting funded by basically white people, so we have to. They were kind of hinting me that I have to water things down, right? So I'm like, okay, well, that's the way you are, but not me, right? And that's why I come on this platform here in my social media. I share this knowledge, and because I'm kind of frustrated with the institutions, frustrated with these cultural centers, these nonprofits. They're all controlled by the government and their corruption. And oh, okay, you won't get funding, right? You better not, bite the hand that feeds you, right? You better pacify the masses, right? Don't speak truth, right? Or else you won't get funding. This is the problem when you're controlled and funded, right? By the colonizers. They control what you say, right? This is part of the problem out here, you know. So I actually advise for more Chicanos and Chicanas out here. If you have a platform, social media, create online courses, create a website, create videos, go on your social media, start dropping knowledge, start exposing things. And I know out here they censor a lot, especially on like platforms, the mainstream platforms. That's why I go on Rumble. Click on my link below, go on Rumble, go on my Twitter. There's a lot of us just dropping knowledge, sharing knowledge. And what's sad is that you don't have a lot of Chicanos doing that, though. You have other ethnicities, but not a lot of Chicanos dropping knowledge out here. So it's time for us Chicanos, brown people out here. Start raising your consciousness, man. Stop letting them manipulate your mind. Stop letting them indoctrinate you, and definitely decolonize the mind, right? As they say back in the day. um, so definitely. Anyways, I guess I'm gonna end it here. If any of you are watching, you want to send a question, send me a question, and maybe I'll answer it. If not, I guess I'll leave it here. I guess I'm gonna end it, and don't forget to connect with me. Go on my Instagram, send me a message if you want to connect, add me. If you want some resources and all that, I definitely have tons of resources. If you want to talk about certain topics or whatever, connect with me on Instagram. Go on my Rumble. I got a lot of good videos there. Uncensored knowledge, right? right here on YouTube, you'll get censored. So I just come on here just talking about mainstream stuff right here. But just go to my Rumble account and look through all those videos. There's so much information. Sometimes, I do my own videos and, I say what I want to say there, unlike here. But also connect with me on Twitter too. I'm always just sharing knowledge there too. There's a lot of us on there too. I know a lot of Democrats don't like Twitter because now it's like other voices, other perspectives are allowed now. We're not being censored there as much as before. So definitely find me on Twitter. Click on my link below, Uncensored Truth and everything, and stop being fooled, stop being deceived, especially by the mainstream media out here. All right, so I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a good night. This is the Conscious Chicano. I guess nobody really showed up for the chat, but it's cool. I'm just barely working on this page, so eventually it's gonna build up and everything. But anyways, you guys have a good night and see you later. And don't be woke, be conscious.